Imagine accidentally giving a junior HR representative the ability to just completely rewrite your company's entire global payroll approval process.
Oh, yeah. That is a terrifying thought.
Right? Or, maybe a marketing intern, just they accidentally reroute all the capital expenditure requests directly into their own inbox, totally bypassing the
It
CFO.
would be a disaster.
A total disaster. And like in traditional enterprise IT, scenarios like that are basically impossible, right? The system is totally locked down.
Yeah, it's a fortress.
Exactly, a fortress guarded by an army of developers.
Yeah.
But in this new world of citizen development where we are literally handing the keys over to the business users, that kind of catastrophic over-provisioning is, well, it's a very real risk.
It really is. Unless, of course, you actually understand the underlying architecture of what you're building.
And that is exactly why we're here today. Because if you're listening to this, you are likely staring down the barrel of an automation project or, you're trying to upskill into the SAP ecosystem. So consider this deep dive your personal, highly structured, hands-on learning guide. We are bypassing all the generic marketing speak today.
Please, no more high-level fluff about digital transformation.
None of it. We are getting our hands dirty. Today is an absolute masterclass in SAP build process automation.
And I think it's important to state right up front that, in a cloud-first on-demand world, knowing how to string together APIs and modular constraints and business rules without writing raw code, it's honestly the ultimate superpower for a citizen developer.
It really is.
But it requires a fundamental shift in how you think about software. You are no longer coding a monolithic application from scratch. You're assembling modular capabilities.
Right. It's like you're the general contractor building a highly automated factory, and we are going to walk you through that entire construction process today.
Every single step.
Yeah, we're taking you from ground zero, like literally securing the land by provisioning your tenant in the SAP Business Technology Platform.
Which is trickier than it sounds.
Oh, we'll get into that. And then we're going to figure out how to source your materials from the pre-built store. We'll dissect the mechanics of how you bend live process workflows to actually fit your company's hierarchy.
The modularity there is just fascinating.
It is. And then we're going to look at how decision logic acts as like the routing brain of your operations. And finally, we will tackle the lifecycle management.
Because you can't just leave things in a sandbox.
Exactly. How you actually export and import these projects out of your test environment and into production.
It's a dense blueprint we're covering today.
Yeah.
But I promise, once you see how the pieces logically connect, like how the security roles feed into the store access, and how that feeds into the process variants governed by the decisions, it becomes incredibly intuitive.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Before you can build this beautiful automated factory, you need the land, right? You need a functional, secure environment to build on.
The foundation.
Right. So if you are following along right now and setting this up yourself, your very first action item is provisioning the tenant. You need to access the SAP, the Business Technology Platform. You're going to look for the free trial or the free tier, but there is a very specific, easily missed configuration detail here that will absolutely trip you up if you aren't paying attention.
Yes, this is crucial for anyone actually doing the hands-on setup right now. When you're creating your account and you're selecting your provider and region, you must ensure your account is created in the U.S. East, specifically the VA, AWS trial region.
Okay, I have to stop you there because whenever I see a highly specific instruction like, US East, VA, AWS, I always wonder, why?
It's a fair question.
Right. Like if I'm a learner sitting in Berlin or I'm in Tokyo, why on earth am I routing my trial account all the way to Virginia on an Amazon Web Services server?
I get asked this all the time, and it really just comes down to how cloud infrastructure is rolled out globally. SAP BTP sits on top of hyperscalers.
Like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud.
Exactly. And when SAP pushes out new services, especially in a trial or a free tier capacity, they don't just simultaneously deploy them to every single data center across the globe all at once.
That would be chaotic.
It would be impossible to manage. So they provision their newest trial environments on specific, highly stable cloud infrastructure regions first, just to ensure consistency.
Ah, okay.
So for SAP Build Process Automation in the trial landscape, that designated sandbox is the US East VA AWS region.
So what happens if I just ignore that and pick a server in Europe because it's closer to me?
If you pick a different region, you might open your service marketplace and find the application completely missing. Or, it might be there, but lacking the latest features we're about to talk about.
Wow. Okay, that makes total sense. So you lock in the U.S. East VA AWS region. You have your virtual plot of land. Now you need the actual service itself.
Right, you need to turn the lights on.
So your next action item, you navigate in your BTP cockpit to the menu called Services, and then you drop down to the Service Marketplace.
And this is basically the central hub for everything you can possibly activate on the platform.
Right. So you will search specifically for SAP Build Process Automation. You find the pile, you hit Create to spin up a new instance, and you make sure you select the free subscription plan.
Crucial step there.
Yes, free subscription. Then you wait. You watch that little status indicator until it flips to subscribed. But here's where the classic trap happens.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Right. You see subscribed, you think, great, I'm done. You try to open the application, and bam, you are staring at an access denied error. It's incredibly frustrating.
It is. It's like buying a state-of-the-art commercial building, signing the deed, and then realizing nobody actually gave you the keys to the front door.
Yes?
An active subscription in BTP means absolutely nothing if you do not have the access rights mapped to your specific user profile.
So how do we get the keys? This is another huge action item. You have to dive into the security settings. You navigate over to the security tab on the left-hand menu. You click on Users. You select your specific user profile and choose the option to assign role collection.
And here is where the concept of enterprise governance immediately introduces itself to you.
Oh yeah, it hits you right in the face.
It does. Because when you search for the word process in that assignment bar, you aren't going to find a single magical super user button that just unlocks everything.
No, you definitely won't. You have to assign 3 distinct core roles to yourself just to get started.
And you need to be exact here.
Right. So first, you need process automation admin. Second, process automation developer. And third, process automation participant.
Admin, developer, participant.
Which brings us right back to that opening scenario I mentioned about the junior HR representative destroying the payroll process.
Exactly.
So let me push back on the setup process a bit. Because if I am just a citizen developer sitting at my desk trying to build a simple bot to help my team, this feels absurdly fragmented.
Yeah, feels like overkill, right?
It really does. It feels like I'm renting that commercial building, and instead of just getting a master key, I'm forcing myself to wear a building manager's hat, an employee badge, and a visitor pass all at the same exact time just to walk down the hallway.
That's a great analogy.
Why wouldn't SAP just give me one role that lets me do everything? Like, is there really a risk of over-provisioning me in a free tier?
The short answer is yes, there's always a risk.
Yeah.
But the deeper architectural answer is that SAP Build Process Automation is designed for massive global enterprise scale.
Okay.
And a foundational pillar of enterprise security is the segregation of duties. By forcing you to assign the admin, developer, and participant roles separately, even in a sandbox environment, the system is actively training you to adopt the correct operational model from day one.
So it's basically building muscle memory for when I move this stuff to production later.
Precisely. Let's break down what these roles actually do, because they control entirely different interfaces within the platform.
Let's do it.
So the process automation admin, your master key, as you called it, is for tenant-level settings. That role does not build workflows.
Wait, the admin can't build a workflow?
No, they manage the environment itself. They configure the destinations, meaning the secure connections to your backend at S/4HANA systems. They manage the broad security protocols, they monitor system health, and they control the agent registry.
Okay, so that's the building manager. They keep the lights on and the doors locked, but they don't actually work on the assembly line.
Exactly. Now, the process automation developer, your employee badge, that role gives you access to the design studio. This is the person actually assembling the factory. They build the workflows, they create the business logic, they configure the robotic process automation bots. But importantly, a pure developer cannot execute the processes they build in a live environment.
Wait, really? So I can build a capital expenditure approval form, but I can't actually use it to request money myself?
Exactly, unless you also have the third role, the process automation participant. This is the end user.
Ah, I see.
This is the person who is actually interacting with the deployed forms, the one approving or rejecting tasks in their universal inbox, the one triggering the start of a process. The participant does not need to know how the workflow is built at all. They just need the authorization to participate in it.
Okay, so if we didn't have the segregation, And you just gave every single employee in the company developer rights just so they could access their inbox.
You'd be in huge trouble.
Yeah, you are giving them the ability to accidentally or maliciously reconfigure the back-end logic of the entire company.
Exactly. You do not want your participants having developer rights, and frankly, you often do not want your developers having admin rights in a live production environment.
That makes total sense.
There are even more granular roles like process automation user and process automation tester, which further restrict or grant specific capabilities.
Yeah.
But grasping the big three admin developer participant is critical.
So, if you are setting this up, your takeaway here is not just to blindly click the three roles and move on. It's to understand why you are clicking them. You're acting as three different people right now because you're in a test environment.
Right.
But in the real world, you will hand the admin key to IT, the developer badge to the business analyst, and the participant pass to the general staff.
Exactly. You've got it perfectly.
Okay, so we have the land, we have the keys, we are walking into the building. Now we need to figure out what materials we have to actually build our automations.
Which means we need to transition into the central repository of the platform, the SAP Build Process Automation Store.
Yes, the store. So you've unlocked the application interface, you look around and you realize, well, it's empty, the factory floor has absolutely nothing on it.
And for anyone who has worked in the SAP ecosystem for a long time, this represents a massive, fundamental paradigm shift in how content is delivered and consumed.
Walk us through that shift, because if I'm used to legacy systems, opening up an empty workspace might feel like I broke something.
Yeah, it can be jarring. To understand the genius of the store, you have to understand the pain of where we came from.
Okay.
In the classic on-premise world, think of the old SAP business workflow. Standard workflows were delivered inside the system itself. They were shipped with the software.
Like burned onto the CD, essentially.
Basically, yeah. So you would install this massive system, and thousands of pre-configured workflows were just sitting there, dormant, deep in the back-end tables, waiting for an IT professional to hunt them down, customize them in code, and activate them.
Which means your system is carrying the dead weight of thousands of workflows you will literally never use. It's a very heavy footprint.
Incredibly heavy, and honestly, incredibly difficult to update. If SAP released a major improvement to a workflow, you had to wait for a massive system upgrade to get it.
Ugh, the dreaded upgrade weekends.
Exactly. But in a cloud-first, software-as-a-service world, the consumption model is entirely on demand. When you spin up that BTP tenant, it starts completely clean, a blank slate. The store is the external repository, where you go to pull down exactly what you need, only when you need it.
It's the ultimate just-in-time manufacturing model applied to software.
Yes, exactly.
So let's give you an exact visual of what this store looks like. You click the store icon, and you are presented with hundreds of project cards. A recent look showed well over 470 distinct projects available.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. If you just start scrolling, you will be instantly overwhelmed.
Which is why the filtering system on the left-hand side is your most important tool. You are not meant to browse blindly.
Right.
You filter by project type, format type, content type, which, by the way, separates free and paid assets.
Yeah.
The catalog, the publisher, and most importantly, your line of business and industry.
Right. So if you are in human resources, you just filter by HR, and suddenly those 470 projects drop down to the, 40 that actually matter to you.
Yeah.
But here is the critical action item for you when you are looking at these project cards. You need to pay very close attention to the action button on the card itself, because they are divided into two distinct categories: templates and ready to use.
And that distinction dictates exactly how much work you are about to do.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If a card says template, the action button on it will literally say create from template.
What does that actually mean under the hood? Like, how much work are we talking?
Well, it means SAP is giving you the architectural blueprint, right? The foundational structure of a best practice process. But a template cannot run out of the box because it simply doesn't know your company's specific data.
It doesn't know who my manager is.
Exactly. It requires you to map it to your back-end systems, configure your specific approvers, or add your own custom logic before it can be deployed. It is a massive head start, but it still requires a builder.
Okay, but what if the card says ready to use? The button on those just says add or open.
Those are plug and play. You literally just add them to your environment. These are usually highly specialized toolkits or utility actions. They don't require heavy configuration because their function is universal.
Let's call out some specific examples you will see while browsing, just so we can anchor this in reality. You've got projects like manage employee central stalled workflows. That one is a template.
Right.
You have mass fixed asset acquisition, also a template. And then you have these utility kits like the Excel SDK and the PowerPoint SDK, which are ready to use.
And looking at those specific examples really highlights the three core architectural pillars that make up the entire store.
Yes, every single asset in that store falls into one of three pillars. And understanding these pillars is basically how you categorize your problem solving.
So let's break down these three pillars.
Okay, I'm going to lean heavily into our factory construction metaphor here just to keep the architecture grounded.
I love a good metaphor. Let's hear it.
Okay, pillar number one, actions. If we are building a factory, actions are your handheld power tools.
That fits perfectly. From a technical standpoint,
Yeah.
actions encapsulate the programming interfaces, the APIs, from your source and target systems.
Okay, let's pause and actually explain the mechanics of that because encapsulating an ATI can sound like a lot of jargon for a citizen developer.
Sure.
In a normal development environment, if my new automation needs to fetch data from my main SAP S/4HANA system, a developer has to write custom code.
Yeah.
They have to authenticate. They have to format a JSON payload, which, if you aren't familiar, is basically just a digital shipping container full of structured text data, and they have to handle the response.
It's complex.
It is complex, and it's brittle. If the API changes, the code breaks. But with the actions pillar, you don't do any of that.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. You just go to the store and grab an action project. For example, if you have a scenario where you need to create or update business partners in your SAP S/4HANA system, there is a pre-configured action for that exact thing.
So SAP has already done the heavy lifting of wrapping that complex API call into a simple, visual, reusable block.
Exactly. The power drill is already assembled. The battery is charged. You literally just have to plug it into your workflow and pull the trigger. You don't need to know how the copper wire inside the drill motor works.
You just pass it the basic data, the name of the business partner, the address, and the action, handles the complex JSON payload, and all the back-end communication.
Brilliant. Okay, pillar number two, process automation content. In my factory, if actions are the handheld power tools, this pillar is the massive robotic assembly arm bolted to the floor.
Yes. This pillar represents the evolution of SAP Intelligent Robotic Process Automation, or RPA. These are the bots.
Digital workers.
Right. This content contains predefined automation templates and those SDK packages like the Excel SDK we just mentioned that are designed to automate highly specific, very repetitive business tasks.
Stuff humans hate doing.
Exactly. Usually, these are tasks that require interacting with user interfaces, scraping screens, or manipulating legacy documents where no clean API even exists.
It's the brute force automation. We are going to dive incredibly deep into a real-world, step-by-step example of that later on because it is just universally applicable. But let's hit pillar number three first. Live process content.
The blueprints.
Right. If actions are the power tools and process automation is the robotic arm, live processes are the architectural blueprints for the entire factory floor.
That is the perfect way to describe it. Live process content is the modern cloud evolution of the classic SAP business workflow. This is where you find the end-to-end workflows that orchestrate absolutely everything.
Okay.
This killer contains the process templates, the business rules that govern them, and the visibility dashboards that monitor them. It is the connective tissue that links humans, bots, and APIs together into a single cohesive process.
So if you are listening to this and you are facing a business problem today, your immediate takeaway should be this. Do not immediately start drawing a flowchart from scratch.
Please don't.
Go to the store. Use the filters. Categorize your problem. Are you trying to connect two systems to share data? Look for an action. Are you trying to replace a human doing tedious manual clicking and copying? Look for process automation. Are you trying to route a document through multiple departments for review and approval? Look for a live process.
You are curating your solution, assembling the blocks, not coding it from the ground up.
Exactly. Okay, so let's zoom in on that third pillar because live processes are where this platform gets incredibly sophisticated.
They really do.
Let's say you've browsed the store and you found a live process template that looks like it fits your needs. You import it. But out of the box, it's just a generic frame.
Right, it's empty.
Every single company's approval chain is different. Like a CapEx request at a 10-person startup might need one signature. At a multinational, that might need 5. How do you actually bend this generic template to match your company's specific messy reality without breaking it?
That is where we get into the architecture of the live process itself. When you import a live process from the store, You might think you are downloading a single file, but you aren't.
You're not.
No, you are actually retrieving a trinity of distinct interconnected artifacts.
The Trinity, I like that. What are the three pieces?
First, you get the process template. Second, you get a decisions project. And third, you get a process visibility project.
Template, decisions, visibility. Let's focus entirely on the process template first because that is the skeletal structure.
The bones.
Right. Here is an actionable step for you. When you looked at the imported process template in your project overview, you will see a drop-down menu. If you click that, it reveals the process variants.
And a variant is simply a specific, customized execution path of the generic template. Think of the template as the concept of a car. The variants are the sedan, the SUV, and the truck. A single template can have many variants depending on the business need.
Right. So you click the plus icon, you select Create, and boom, you are staring at the no-code editor canvas. And this is where the architectural concept of constraints comes into play. And frankly, this is where a lot of people get super confused.
Constraints are fascinating. They are basically the underlying mathematical logic that governs how you can stack process steps together on that canvas.
Let's explain this, because when I first saw the constraint mapping in the documentation, it looked like algebraic notation. It didn't look like no-code drag and drop. It was just numbers and dots.
It is mathematical, essentially. A delivered process template contains various process steps. Think of them as Lego blocks.
Okay, Legos.
But unlike standard Legos, you cannot just snap any block onto any other block in any order you want. The system imposes strict rules or constraints to ensure the process remains logically sound and functionally viable.
Let's walk through the specific mapping, because you have 4 main types of steps, and they each have a specific numerical constraint. The first is the initialization step. The constraint on that is 1.1.
Meaning 1 to 1. Or, more accurately in this context, exactly 1. You must have exactly 1 initialization step in your variant, and you cannot have more than 1.
So it's mandatory, but singular.
Right. It makes logical sense, too. A business process has to start somewhere. It requires an initial trigger or data input, but it can't start in 2 different places simultaneously.
Okay, that makes total sense. The second step type is the approval step. The constraint here is 1n.
1 to n, where n represents infinity, meaning 1 to many. To be a valid variant of this specific workflow, you must have at least 1 approval step. It is mandatory, but it is iterative. You can have as many approvals as you need, 2, 5, 20, just keep stacking the approval box.
Just stack them up. Okay, the third step type is extension. The constraint on this one is 0.1.
0 or 1. This makes the extension step entirely optional. You do not have to include it, that's the 0. But if you do choose to include an extension, perhaps to call a secondary validation workflow, you can only have 1 in this specific sequence.
And the final step type is finalization. The constraint is 1.1 again.
Exactly 1. Mandatory. The process must have a definitive end state where the data is written or the functional notification is sent.
Okay, I have to challenge you on this.
Go for it.
Because if I'm a developer, even a citizen developer, I want total freedom. I want a blank canvas. If my business process is incredibly convoluted and I decide I need 3 extension steps to call out to 3 different external validation systems, why restrict me with a 0.1 constraint? Why not just let me build whatever I want and figure it out?
Because total freedom in enterprise process design usually leads to total chaos.
Ouch. Fair, but ouch.
It's true.
Yeah.
If you give a citizen developer an unconstrained canvas, they will inevitably build a circular loop that traps data forever, or a process that terminates before an approval is actually logged in the back end.
Okay, fair point. I guess it is exactly like buying a kit for a modular home.
How so?
Well, if you buy a modular home kit, you have a lot of choices. You can pick the siding, you can add a wraparound porch, you can choose the interior layout of the kitchen. But the manufacturer puts strict constraints on how the structural steel pieces lock together.
Right.
They force you to put the foundation down first, and they mathematically prevent you from accidentally installing the roof in the basement.
That is a perfect analogy. The constraints prevent the citizen developer from breaking the fundamental logic of the underlying enterprise system. It provides a rigid, error-proof framework.
So it's safe.
Exactly. You can flexibly adapt to changing business requirements, like you can add 3 extra manager approvals using that 1.n constraint if corporate policy changes tomorrow, but you can do it safely without ever touching the underlying code because the template hides all that back-end complexity.
Let's trace a concrete path so you can really visualize this in your head as you listen. If we look at the demo variant flow that comes with the training materials, we can literally see these blocks snap together in the no-code editor.
Let's walk through that specific node path. What does the visual canvas look like?
Okay, so you start at the top. You have a green circle. That's the start trigger. An arrow points down to a green box. Initialization. That's our 1.1 constraint satisfied. We have our foundation.
Puffy.
The arrow then points down to a purple box, approval by local manager. Then an arrow points down to another purple box, approval by area manager. That is our 1N constraint in action. We needed at least one, but we used two.
Right. We stack the iterative blocks.
Then an arrow points down to a blue box. Call validation workflow. This is labeled as a generic extension step. That is our 0.1 constraint. We decided to use our one optional extension.
Yep.
And finally, an arrow points down to an orange box, finalization, which satisfies our final 1.1 requirement. And it ends in a red circle, end.
It is incredibly elegant when you see it visually. You are literally just dragging and dropping the available steps from the left-hand panel into that central canvas. And as long as you obey those numerical constraints, the system guarantees you are building a robust enterprise-grade process variant. When you're done, you just hit save and activate.
So if you are building this, you are stacking modular steps inside a no-code editor, guided by mathematical constraints that guarantee your workflow won't break the system. But here is the massive question.
Lay on me.
We just built a variant. Let's say we actually built two variants. Variant 1 is for cheap requests and only needs one manager. Variant 2 is for expensive requests and needs two managers. Both are active. When an employee submits a form, how does the system actually know which of those variants to use?
And that brings us back to our trinity. We have covered the process template and its variants. That is the skeletal structure. Now, we need the brain to decide which path to take.
Right. We need the logic. So let's talk about the brains and the eyes of the operation. We are moving into the second and third artifacts of that live process trinity.
The brain is the decisions project.
So if you are configuring this, your next move is to open the decisions project artifact. You need to configure the business rules. Specifically, you will find a rule called determine process variant.
Decisions are powerful because they encapsulate business logic. Their entire architectural purpose is to decouple the rules from the workflow itself.
We need to explain why decoupling is so incredibly important, because a lot of people just instinctively try to hard code IFIN statements directly into their workflow steps.
Oh, and that is a recipe for an absolute maintenance nightmare.
Why?
Think about a capital expenditure approval, a CapEx request. The rules for who needs to approve a CapEx change constantly based on quarterly budgets, inflation, or just a new CFO coming in and changing the corporate policy.
True, rules change all the time.
If your approval rule is hard-coded directly into the structural workflow, every single time a policy changes, you have to take the system offline, tear down the workflow, rewrite the code, run regression testing, and redeploy the whole thing.
Which means IT has to get involved, and a simple policy change takes, 3 weeks to implement?
Exactly. It creates a massive organizational bottleneck. But by decoupling the logic into a completely separate decisions project, the workflow becomes incredibly lightweight.
How does the workflow know what to do then?
The workflow just receives a request and basically says, hey, decision engine, I have a request here. Which structural variant should I run? The decision engine looks at its standalone rule table, evaluates the data, and returns the answer. The beautiful part is, a business user can update that rule table daily without ever touching the process template.
Let's give them the concrete example from the CapEx scenario so they can see how this rule table works in practice. The decision engine is looking at the payload, which, again, is just the actual data submitted in the request form by the employee.
Yes. The engine evaluates the payload in real time.
So a business user logs into the decisions project and sets up a really simple table. Rule 1. If the total request amount is lower than €10,000, trigger process variant 1. Variant 1 is our minimum viable process. It just has the initialization, one single approval by the local manager, and finalization. It's built for speed.
Simple, fast, low risk.
But then they add Rule 2. If the total request amount is higher than €10,000, trigger process variant 2. Variant 2 is the heavy one. It has initialization, local manager approval, and area manager approval, plus finalization.
What's fascinating here from a systems architecture perspective is the real-time execution state.
What do you mean by that?
The decision engine does not pre-calculate this overnight. It evaluates that payload instantly at the exact millisecond of process instantiation. It dynamically routes the system on the fly.
It is literally an automated train switchyard.
Ooh, Another analogy. I like it.
A freight train rolls up to the yard, that is the CapEx request form submitted by the employee. The switchyard, the decision engine, analyzes the cargo inside the train. It looks at the specific euro amount field.
Right.
If the cargo is 9,000 euros, the switchyard flips the tracks instantly, sending the train speeding down the fast local manager line. But if the next train rolls up and the cargo is 12,000 euros, the switchyard flips the tracks the other way, sending it down the slower dual approval line.
And the most important part of that analogy, the person operating the switchyard isn't a developer. It's a citizen developer, a business analyst, just configuring those thresholds in a visual table.
Right.
If amount less than 10K, variant 1. If amount greater than 10K, variant 2.
It is brilliant. It empowers the business to act at the speed of business. Okay, so that is the brains routing this flow. What about the eyes? The third piece of our live process trinity is the process visibility project.
When you deploy the process, you also deploy the attached process visibility scenario.
Now, I can hear a listener thinking right now, why do I need this? If the rules route the process automatically, and the variants execute the steps flawlessly based on mathematical constraints, isn't that enough? Why do I need to stare at it on a dashboard?
Because process monitoring isn't just a nice-to-have, colorful dashboard for middle management to look at. In SAP Build Process Automation, visibility is a core architectural component delivered out of the box.
But why? If the system works perfectly, what is there to monitor?
Because enterprise processes involve humans, and humans are entirely unpredictable. When you are running thousands of capital expenditure requests globally, you will inevitably have bottlenecks. A local manager goes on a 2-week vacation without setting an out-of-office delegate in the system, or an area manager just gets overwhelmed and ignores their inbox for a week.
The system isn't broken, but the flow stops completely.
Exactly. The workflow is doing exactly what it was told to do. Wait for approval. Visibility scenarios give you real-time metrics on process health. You aren't just seeing how many requests were completed, you are seeing the execution state of active requests.
So you can actually find the logjam.
Right. You can see exactly which node in the variant path is causing the delay. You can open the dashboard and see that, okay, 50 requests are currently stalled, specifically at the area manager approval step. That allows operations to intervene in real time rather than waiting for an end-of-month report to realize nothing got purchased.
So essentially, you are mastering the decoupling of business logic, the decisions from the structural workflow, steps, the variants, and you are deploying built-in monitoring to watch it all happen and catch the human errors. It is a complete operational suite.
It is. We have built the factory, we have the assembly lines running, and we have the line managers routing the traffic.
But so far, we have been talking entirely about workflows that involve human decision makers, managers clicking approve or reject. What about the soul-crushing, repetitive grunt work? The stuff where humans are basically just acting like slow, error-prone routers between legacy systems.
That brings us to the second pillar of the story we discussed earlier, process automation, the realm of robotic process automation, or RPA.
Yes, let's get into some hands-on task automation. We are going to eradicate some manual data entry right now.
Let's do it.
Let's set up a highly realistic business scenario, because I guarantee someone listening to this is currently suffering through this exact workflow. Imagine a department within your company, let's say it's maintenance or facilities. Throughout the week, they create Microsoft Excel documents listing all the specific goods and replacement materials they need to order.
A very common scenario. They are operating outside the core ERP system, just compiling lists in spreadsheets on their desktop.
Exactly. So on Friday afternoon, they have this massive spreadsheet. Currently, to trigger the actual corporate purchasing process, a human being must sit down at their desk. They open the Excel file on their left monitor. They open the SAP S/4HANA system on their right monitor.
I'm already wincing.
And they read the Excel list line by line, cell by cell, and manually type that information into S/4HANA to create purchase requisitions, or PRs, for every single item.
It is brutally tedious. It is highly prone to copy-paste errors, transposition errors, and fatigue. And frankly, it is a terrible use of human capital. You are paying a knowledgeable employee to act as a human API.
Right. So your task, as the newly minted citizen developer in the department, is to implement an automation that reads that Excel list and creates the PRs automatically. You are going to free up your colleagues Friday afternoon. So how do we actually execute this?
We rely on our golden rule. Do not build from scratch. You do not open a code editor and start writing Python scripts to parse Excel files.
So what is the exact execution flow?
First, you browse the store. You filter for the specific task automation content template that handles Excel to S/4HANA purchase requisitions. There are pre-built templates for this exact common scenario.
Okay, step 1, find the template.
Step 2, you import that task automation content into your workspace. Third, you create a new project from this template. And fourth, you enter the visual editor to adjust the automation for your specific department's requirements, maybe mapping a specific custom column in your spreadsheet that the template didn't expect.
Let's talk about the how here, because I think RPA can seem like magic to people who haven't built it. How does the bot actually read the Excel file? This connects back to the SDKs we saw in the store earlier, right? This automation is going to utilize that Excel SDK.
Yes, the Excel SDK is a ready-to-use package. An SDK, or software development kit in this context, is a collection of pre-programmed activities that allows your automation bot to interact directly with the Microsoft Excel application.
So it's not just using a camera to read the screen.
No, it isn't magic. It's communicating with Excel's underlying COM objects, or XML structure. It tells the bot exactly how to open a specific file path, how to identify the active worksheet, how to loop through the rows until it hits an empty one, and how to extract the data string located in specific cells.
It parses the spreadsheet structurally, not just visually scraping the screen.
Exactly. It parses the data into memory. Then the bot moves to the second phase. It takes those extracted data fields, say the material number from column A, the quantity from column B, the delivery date from column C, and it maps them to the required fields for a purchase requisition payload.
Right.
Then, utilizing an action our power tools from earlier, it pushes that mapped data payload securely into S/4HANA via APIs.
So the bot acts as a digital high-speed bridge between a legacy unstructured format like a desktop Excel file and your modern, highly structured enterprise system. And it does it in seconds without a single typo.
And it logs every successful creation and flags any errors, like if a material number doesn't exist in the system for a human to review.
The psychological victory here is just massive. If you are the citizen developer who deploys this, you aren't just optimizing a corporate process. You are genuinely improving your colleagues' quality of life.
You really are.
You are eliminating soul-crushing data entry. You are building a digital robot to do the robotic work, letting the human go back to doing actual human work, analyzing the purchasing trends, negotiating better vendor contracts, things that require actual intelligence.
That is the true value proposition of SAP Built Process Automation. It is democratizing the elimination of toil.
So if you are listening, you now have a step-by-step methodology for replacing those human data entry bridges in your own department using task automation templates and specific SDKs. But there is one final critical piece to the puzzle.
The lifecycle management.
Exactly. We have built an incredible CapEx workflow. We have built this life-saving Excel to S/4HANA bot. But remember where we started. We built them all in our personal free tier account.
Which means they are completely isolated. They are functioning beautifully, but they are trapped value. You cannot run a company's real purchasing process out of your trial sandbox.
Right. Which brings us to the final phase of our deep dive, lifecycle management, specifically exporting, importing, and tenant portability.
Let's get into it.
Here is the collaborative scenario. You built this brilliant task automation project in your personal free tier account. It works perfectly. Now you need that project in your department's official production-grade BTP tenant so the whole team can use it, or so you can use it as a foundational template for other departments.
There is actually a knowledge quiz question in the official SAP learning materials that specifically addresses a very common and very painful misconception here.
Oh, what's the misconception?
It asks if, in order to share a project across tenants, you have to manually recreate the initial project from scratch in the target environment.
And the answer to that is definitively absolutely false. Do not manually recreate the project. That defeats the entire purpose of building a modular cloud-based architecture.
It would be a monumental waste of time. Your action item for project portability is execution via the native import-export functionality. It is incredibly straightforward.
So how do you actually do it?
The person who built the project simply navigates to their SAP Build Process Automation lobby, selects the project, clicks the three dots, and hits Export. This generates a compressed project file.
You download that exported file to your local machine, you log into your department's target tenant, you hit the import button, upload the file, and you are done.
But let's look at why this is so important and what is actually happening under the hood from an enterprise architecture perspective. When you hit Export, you are not just exporting a flat text file or a single script. You are packaging all of the interconnected modular dependencies we just spent the last hour dissecting.
You are exporting the entire trinity.
Exactly. If it is a live process you are moving, the export payload automatically gathers the process template, all of the mathematically constrained variants you built, the entire decisions project along with its specific business rule tables, and the fully configured process visibility dashboards.
Wow.
It bundles every single architectural layer into a single, seamless, encrypted package.
So it's like saving your game state to a memory card on a video game console. You pull the memory card out of your machine, you hand it to a friend, they plug it into their console across town, and they can boot it up and pick up exactly where you left off.
That's a great way to think about it.
They have all your items, all your progress, all your unlocked levels intact. You don't make them play through the entire 10-hour tutorial again just to join you.
That is exactly how artifact portability works in SAP BTP. It ensures that development done in a sandbox, a trial account, or a dedicated development tenant can be smoothly, securely migrated to a quality assurance tenant for testing, and finally into a production tenant for live use.
Or it can simply be shared across different departmental tenants globally.
Which means your work in the free tier isn't just a toy. You aren't just playing around. The free tier is a legitimate, viable staging ground for enterprise solutions.
You can build real, impactful automations today for free and port them directly into your company's production environment tomorrow.
Precisely. The barriers to entry are entirely removed.
Okay, let's take a deep breath and synthesize everything we have covered in this deep dive, because it has been an intense, highly technical journey. We started with the absolute basics, but we saw how those basics dictate the security of the entire system.
It really builds on itself.
It does. If you have been following along, you now know the critical importance of provisioning your BTP tenant in the correct AWS trial region. You know how to assign the big three roles, admin, developer, participant, and you deeply understand why that segregation of duties prevents catastrophic over-provisioning.
You know how to navigate the store. You can identify the structural difference between a template that requires configuration and a ready-to-use asset that you just plug in. You understand the architecture of the three pillars: actions for wrapping complex APIs, process automation for building UI interacting bots, and live processes for orchestrating end-to-end workflows.
You know how to enter the no-code editor and configure modular process variants using those strict numerical constraints 1.1, 1, and 0.1 to ensure you don't build a broken process.
You know how to deploy standalone decision engines to route those variants based on dynamic business rules, entirely decoupled from the workflow structure itself.
You understand the mechanics of how to leverage SDKs, like the Excel SDK, to parse legacy documents, map the payloads, and automate away the soul-crushing tasks of manual data entry into S/4HANA.
And finally, you know how to package and migrate all of that incredible work seamlessly across different tenants using the import-export lifecycle management tools.
You aren't just well-informed anymore, you are officially armed and dangerous.
You are a highly capable citizen developer, ready to build the factory.
But as always on this show, we want to leave you with something to chew on. A provocative thought that goes beyond the technical manuals and the configuration steps.
Always good to zoom out at the end.
So, looking at the big picture of everything we just discussed, what is the big lingering question here for the future of enterprise software?
Well, if SAP Build Process Automation successfully empowers citizen developers to instantly change core business logic, if a business analyst can just flip a switch in a no-code decision table or build a new approval variant on the fly without ever talking to an engineer, how does traditional IT governance evolve to handle that speed?
Oh, that is a massive question. It completely flips the power dynamic.
It does. The IT department is no longer the bottleneck slowing the business down, but critically, IT is still ultimately responsible for the security, stability, and compliance of the enterprise.
Right. If things break, IT still gets the call.
Exactly. So, if you are listening to this and preparing to champion citizen development in your own company, how will you manage version control? How will you handle auditing and compliance when the business users, not just the IT professionals, hold the actual keys to enterprise automation?
Suddenly the system isn't broken, it's just moving faster than the governance was designed to handle.
Exactly.
We started by talking about the fear of a junior HR rep breaking the system. SAP Build Process Automation gives you the tools to prevent that, while still giving that HR rep the power to build incredible things. It gives you the architectural blueprints, the power tools, and the robotic arms all in one interface without needing a computer science degree to operate it.
The only question now is,
What are you going to build with it?